The views and opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of our partners, hosts, or affiliates. Our goal is to support short track racing and the dedicated men and women who make it possible while providing entertainment for our listeners. Now, sit back, enjoy the show, and let's hear the stories.
They said, one day you're going to wake up and realize that you spent your whole life with this racing deal.
They done jury selection and was asked, of course the judge asked, you have any involvement? Well, guess who got asked? He said, what knowledge do you have of it? I said, well, this incident, I was running third. When he took him out, it put me in second, and now that just gave me the lead.
Right.
And he just kind of, the judge just looks at me, he's like, fuck it.
And you haven't experienced anything yet.
Mm-hmm. They were already down in the hole, so when they went off, they were just about eye level, above eye level.
Yeah.
So you could take a small show
and make it,
and it just seems really big.
Mm-hmm.
Story of my life.
And you've missed out on a lot of other things.
Look, if you fight in a pitch, you're going to jail.
Right.
If you fight on the track, the winner gets $100, the loser gets $50. When it come down to the nut cutting, they wouldn't do it.
I don't think anybody thought you were serious.
I was dead serious.
And my comment back was, yeah, but I did exactly what I wanted to do.
I want to know the stories. I want to hear the stories. Hey guys, welcome back to the Short Track Shakedown, brought to you today by 5 Star Medicare and Blackwater Bookkeeping. I am Josh Goodwin, alongside my buddy Jake Moore.
How's it going, guys?
Today is going to be the continuation podcast of the Micha McCall story that we started last week. I know everybody's really been anticipating the rest of it, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
Retirement. Have you ever thought about what that word means? Have you ever thought about how it will change your life? Have you thought about negotiating getting on Medicare or Medicaid? Have you thought about what company you may want to go with? I'm sure you have lots of questions just like I would. If you have questions, you need to call Kenny Thorpe at 5 Star Medicare. They make Medicare easy. They deal with Aetna, Cigna, Devoted Health Plans, Humana, and United Healthcare. Kenny can answer all of your questions, even about supplements on Medicare. Please give him a call at 850-525-2424. Again, that's 850-525-2424.
All right. So, when Jimmy was, his time come to an end, he wanted to make sure that the track stayed in the right hands, I guess you would say, or went the direction. I don't really know what his line of thinking was, but he called us into the kitchen table that night and said, I want your, I'm thinking about doing this, and will you help me? I ain't gonna tell that man no for anything.
Right.
And it's always been that way and will always be that way. I mean, it's even brought contention in, with my wife, because she knows when that man calls, I'm going,
Mm-hmm.
So I've never turned him down, never told him no. And I said, absolutely. And I knew what that meant. I knew that meant parking those cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that we'd spent the last, 3 years doing.
Trying to build it.
Very, very consistently, running every single night. We got really good at it, and that old junk street stock car that I had was junk, but it was fast,
Mm-hmm.
And, I was racing against Bobby Rismondo, Calvin Cook, Ricky Haugen, Adam Ellison, Farmers, Kilpatrick. Like there were some good drivers back then, and, we were the cream of the crop, and I knew that doing the racetrack and helping him, all that had to go.
Right.
Never hesitated. Absolutely. Yep, we'll help. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea about that, but
going on a 10-year ride there.
Yeah. I really didn't think it was going to last that long. I didn't know how much work was involved in it. And the first year, I just sort of leaned more on him, thinking that he knew everything there was to know about promotions and knew everything what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out his way of doing things was a little dated,
Right.
As far as promotion, which, Facebook wasn't really around that first year or so. It wasn't doing anything. So it was phone calls and flyers.
Right.
That was your promotion,
Mhm.
and a website. But as far as working the track, doing the prep work, anything like that, I didn't have a damn clue as what we were doing. But we had Joe Wallace out there helping us out. Had Joey Huss, God rest him, and a lot of help. Steve Turner was out there. A lot of guys jumped in and helped us out, getting the place up to snuff.
Y'all got newer equipment, didn't you? Whenever y'all took it over,
Yeah, well, we ended up buying our own stuff, but
you didn't have the 1940 something grader that Clint was talking about.
No, we ended up Charlie Brown over in Century. He had a grader and we was using it for a while, and we ended up buying our own. And same way with the Dozier and the backhoe, just stuff that you needed around the racetrack to do the work with. Bought a new tractor.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little Ford 4000, but we bought another tractor with a front bucket on it. Just for doing the work around the track.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of those guys that come out and helped us get the track in shape, make all the improvements that we done. And they were very, very helpful on that. But that lasted for about 6 races, and they wanted to go race too,
Mm-hmm.
So that helped sort of dry it up. So man, it was sink or swim time. We had to do it. And our grader man that we had working the track, my granddaddy started telling this story a few weeks ago. He didn't show up one night, one day, had to work or whatever the reason was. And he said, granddaddy didn't know what to do. And I said, I'll grade. He's sitting at the breakfast table. I said, I'll grade it. He said, you don't know how to run a grader? I was like, I've watched him do it. Can't be that hard, So I jumped up there and I graded the track for my first time. I ain't never set ass on a grader, and ended up grading the track.
Dude,
and
one of them try to work all the levers out,
figuring out what was what. Yeah, but
were you already doing the pilot thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Hydraulics is hydraulics.
Yeah,
you just need to find the functions.
Yeah, but you can't put an airplane wing down the dirt.
No.
It was Greek to me, but I always watched. I watched the tater row is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
When he was grading the track, I watched that tater row, and it stayed consistent. So I just knew whatever I done that blade, that tater row needed to stay consistent.
Right.
So it took me a little while, but I figured it out, and we ended up having a pretty good track. He right out of the gate, he basically called me the director, of operations out there, race director, whatever you want to call it. And ended up having a little bit of an issue because, again, I'm right out of high school at the time, and you had flagman that was older, you had a race director that was older. A lot of these people were just older and just didn't want to listen. And I'm trying to rush the show along and do things a certain way and go ahead and start implementing the things, the different little pieces of entertainment that I wanted to do. Whether it be the 4-wide salute, be the wave off lap, just different little things. Just trying to rush the show up, and I'm telling them, show them one to go, and they're not doing it. Trying to do a wave off lap, send off lap, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing it. Just different little things like that. So,
that's hard.
Yeah, just not having that level of respect. I didn't know at the time how to talk to the drivers, deal with the drivers. I've never had any problem public speaking, but just there was a complete lack of respect for the age.
Right.
So just dealing with that was the growing pains that I had in that role. And he's so soft-spoken, very well respected, but soft-spoken, that he really didn't jump in. It was sink or swim, for me, 100%. And at the time, I didn't, Seth was there with me for a little bit. Then he actually did move off to college. So I was there by myself, for a good bit of it, for a couple of years. And, Justin and my brother-in-law, my sister, they were living in Texas. So there was many nights I was there by myself, water truck after water truck, disking it, plowing it, grading it, doing the whole thing by myself.
Just making it happen.
And then eventually, as the years passed, I ended up getting some more help, and then I ended up having a really, really good group of guys helping And it's just different guys from high school that I grew up with, and my brother-in-law, and Adam, Kevin Jeffers come along, Taco, Todd.
Oh, Kevin. Kevin.
Yeah, there were several of them, that ended up coming back and coming around and helping me out there toward the end. And that was instrumental.
Oh yeah,
we'd shut that thing down long before then if it was still just me. But just sort of learning the ropes, trying to fight for that respect.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up getting a new flagman, ended up getting a new race director, just different little things like that. But there was one constant, that was Big Tim.
Oh yeah.
He come in from the very beginning. I said, when my granddaddy asked me for help, I said, I want Big Tim as deck man.
Yeah.
Called, made a phone call, got him in, and
we look forward to having him on the show. That's gonna be an awesome conversation.
He's got plenty to tell. But he was the constant, and we always had a really good relationship. But as we got the people in position, and as I got a little bit more respect, first year was great because it was the new hot thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second year, boy, we were doing some learning, and just had to just like any business after you grand opening,
right,
or after any marriage, the honeymoon is over.
Right.
Now the work begins. So the second year was really tough, and that's where I just said, okay, the old way of doing things is dying. We got to innovate and we got to do something new. So that's when we started the social media campaign, doing that. Very first racetrack in the country to have social media.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's an impressive thing.
Just because what are the kids doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. Started speeding this, got the show sped up because I had the right personnel in place that would listen to me and do the things that I wanted to do. Got that sped up. And this is going into the third year that we started making our comeback, right? Late models were sort of fading out a little bit. And I don't remember if it was the third or fourth year, but the economy was just terrible. We run that track in the worst economy, through
08.
Yeah, it was bad. Running the track through that. Tire prices were going up. We'd love to have those tire prices back now, but
God, ain't that the truth?
Tire prices are coming back up, and the late model guys all but boycotted us, so to speak. I was trying to go to them and, hey, let's put 55s on the rear.
Right.
Let's put 55s on the rear. It would make for better racing, and it really would. I don't know why in the world. I do know why we haven't done it yet, but go to a hard tire.
Mm-hmm.
It'll slow the cars down, make them less stuck, make
put more in the driver's hand.
Exactly.
And the tire would last a lot longer.
It would last a lot longer.
You probably get 2 races out of it instead of just 1 or maybe even 3.
So I ended up getting a lot of pushback from that. And basically, they all but said, we'll just go race somewhere else. I'll make sure of it. So we didn't put them on the schedule at all. And so we're going to double down on our track prep. And this is when, there was some contentious ownership at other tracks and just really couldn't jive well. Got into a little bit of a bidding war. Anytime, big race would go on, another big race gets thrown on somewhere else, and it's just like a bidding war.
Yeah.
So
it's just hurting everybody.
I'm just going to stop doing that. We're going to double down on our track prep. We're going to double down on the classes that feed us. That was, at the time, it was the street stocks and pure stocks.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to double down on that. We're going to give them the best racing service. We're going to put some money up for them. Not $1,000 a week, but we're going to highlight these guys through our website, through our social media, different things that we're doing. We're going to double down on this right here, and this is what's going to get us through. Made more money that year than we did any other year.
Wow.
I started condensed as the years went by. As far as the schedule went, we started shrinking the schedule down. We run 38 races our first year.
Holy cow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That's what Jimmy done.
Right. Yeah.
He's
racing every weekend.
All the time.
Yeah.
And if it was a holiday show, he'd race Saturday, he'd race Monday, he'd race Saturday.
Damn.
And he'd put double points on the 2 weekends. So if you were points racing, which was
you had to be there.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
So it just sort of lock you in, man. It's just a grind.
Yeah.
And again, he running in a lot better economy than what we did.
Mm-hmm.
people just didn't have the money
Right.
to come to the races when it was like that. So I started shrinking the schedule down. And the way I would look at it, we kept pretty good notes on everything. And we would look at the books, look at the schedule, compare the two. If there was something very conflicting, whatever reason was, if the race didn't make money, it got cut. Red line drawn through it.
Yep.
Not doing that one. Go back through it. Not doing that one. Not doing that one. Then I'd look, get the schedule. Ended up 18 races was
the money. Yeah,
it was perfect.
Big, yeah.
It was enough that a family of 4 could save up, come to the races, eat, drink, be merry,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to come back 2 weeks later and do it again.
Right.
Your racer, he's able to go run, maybe cut a couple of tires down. He works for 2 weeks. He's got the money, comes back and does it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just way easier on the driver. You run a risk with that of giving them too much freedom and they get involved in other things. They get boats, they start going on trips, they get camper, whatever it is, start going to the beach. But the other tracks in the area sort of kept them busy.
Right.
But we figured out that it was just so much easier on us. We made more money by doing less. And of those 18 races, there was no such thing as regular racing.
Right. It was
No
always
such
something
thing.
going on.
You always had to have an event
Yep.
of some sort because regular racing does not sell
I
to
agree.
anybody.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I agree with that 100%.
So it had to be something special every night. Whether it was just hot dog races, kids bike races,
Pit crew challenge.
Pit Crew Challenge. That was another one that was a hit.
I'm a winner of that challenge.
yeah.
I'm part of that team. We glued lug nuts.
We done the womanless powder puff races. Yeah. Owen, come here. Bring me that phone. I got pictures. I'll show you. But yeah, we done the womanless womanless powder puff races.
Mm-hmm.
They were just funny as they could be. I got some. I'm gonna share these pictures with you so that there's some guys that hope these pictures didn't exist anymore.
Oh, man.
We got to drag them out.
Yeah.
What'd they do? Have to dress up in drag or something?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need those for the Facebook.
Oh, 100%. You're getting them.
Oh, that's
You're getting
awesome.
them.
That is awesome.
But yeah, and it was just funny.
Mhm.
The crowd loved it.
Uh-huh.
It was hilarious. And
Show business.
And the guys, gals, whatever you want to call them at the time. They had a really good time with it too.
That is too funny.
Here we go. Recognize that one?
Oh, God.
Kevin Mitchell.
That's awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Outstanding.
I think that night.
I'm sorry, Kevin, but it's going to be on the Facebook.
I'm not sure who this one is, but I'm thinking it might be Craig Crossley. He's gonna hate me for it. Might be. I mean, this was taken with the old Nextel Motorola phone.
I think that is. I think that is Craig Crossley.
Old Rusty Turner, Jared Johns.
Are you looking to transform your property? Do you need a pool removed, land cleared, or expert grading for your next big project? Look no further than More Site Solutions. One thing that makes More Site Solutions different than other companies, when you call, you're not just getting a business, you're getting Jake. That's right, the owner. Jake personally answers your phone call, shows up for every estimate, and never leaves you hanging. No ghosting, no excuses, just honest, reliable service from start to finish. And if you're the DIY type, they have you covered too. More Site Solutions can supply the materials you need to get the job done right. So whether it's a big project or a small one, More Site Solutions is ready to make it happen. Give Jake a call today at 850-332-2827. And let's get to work.
But just dressed up in drag and brought them out and doing interviews and dance contests and just different stuff like that.
That's hilarious.
People loved it.
Yeah, that's
it was
hilarious.
so funny to do that. And we, I think we talked about the hot dog races last time we were here. But like I said, whatever it is, you just don't do we didn't do a regular night of racing. Always something. And we were fortunate that Jimmy, Goodwin, he had developed the Labor Day shootout, 4th of July shootout, and the Memorial Day shootout. The 4th of July is actually the birthday of the track, July 4th, 1961. Okay. So we run that race. Didn't matter what day of the week July 4th fell on, we run that race.
Okay.
And it was absolutely the best show every year, you know.
Y'all had good fireworks, too.
And, you know, if I told you how much the fireworks cost, you wouldn't believe me. How much do you think they cost?
I don't know. Y'all probably at least had $500, $600, $700 in it.
Most people would say about $5,000.
That's where I was at.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good show, and it lasted a pretty good while.
Yeah,
too.
we had a really good deal. We were getting them for about $1,200.
Yeah.
But think about the way the track was set up. We were shooting them off down in the hole. They didn't have to go really high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They were already down in the hole. So when they went off, they were just about eye level, above eye level.
Yeah.
You know, so you could take a small show
and make it,
and it just seems really big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, story of my life.
I don't believe I'd have told that.
But I told you my life is a comedy.
Yeah. Right.
But you know, you could have a really good show like that. And on those nights, you know, we got them in, got them out. You know, the goal was to be done by 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
Started at 7, tried to be done by 9:30. Everybody had to work.
You made it entertainment. It was
you know, we do the 4 wide salute. It's probably the best. I think you were involved in a few of them.
Uh-huh.
You know, the best 4 wide salutes of the pure stock division, Flomaton Speedway.
Yeah.
You know, it was just orchestrated perfectly.
So
you know,
I have never admitted this out loud, but my favorite part of qualifying on the front row as a 6-shooter was to be on the front row of the 4 wide salute.
Yeah.
I've got that picture.
Yeah, because you're on the inside row, and then we would clear them out.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was just orchestrated. It wasn't like the World of Outlaws or, you know, the Cajun sprint cars. Everybody just sort of found their way up there.
When you do that 4 wide salute and then you clear out, they tell you to go, you feel like a superhero when you come out of that thing.
You know, we'd start, you know, you got 24 cars, you know, so row 7, you're going to be where you go. Leaders, hold your pace, hold your line. You know, row 7, I'd call them out. You're going to go to the inside, you're going to go outside. Everybody else follow suit, and they would just fill in on the inside and outside. Go around, do the parade lap. Sorry about that. Go around, do the parade laps, and then, it's time to get out of it. Everything needed to be a show, even that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I would tell the outside lines, the far inside and the far outside, hold it, inside line, clear it out. And they would just go, you know, just ape ass, go down the backstretch, clear it out. And it was so cool to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it was
a spectacle.
It was a spectacle. Yeah. Every little thing had to be a show.
It was absolutely cool to do it too. You're leading this big ass field, and then you just get to go, and it's so
I mean,
cool.
it's really cool if you're in row 6 because you're in the last row, but you're in the middle. You know, so you just get to go flying by these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just close quarters. It was just really cool, and a lot of people loved it. It was great. You know, unfortunately, we lost Jared Johns.
Yeah.
And his mother is a saint.
Oh, yeah.
And the things that she done for that race and that we were able to do and keeping his memory going, made it into one of the premier events in this part of the country.
Yeah.
You know, and we purposely tried to do that. We wanted it to be like a crown jewel event around here. And a lot of people bought into it. But that was another special night for us. A lot of people come out. She raised a lot of money for that race. And it helped the racetrack a lot, you know, and it would never be forgotten. We were sad that she wanted to turn the page on that.
Yeah.
But we understand why. But that was, that was always a big event that we done. Then we had the Gulf Coast Shootout or Gulf Coast Dirt Track Championship at the end. Another one of Jimmy's ideas.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't stray very far from what he done. You know, we just tried to expedite everything and make it all a show. And we didn't run as much, but he was really good and was able to adapt and apply the modern day promotions to it.
Right.
You know, and just tried to keep it going as much as we could as far as the promotion went, and just drive people to the track that way. And we never had a problem getting people in the grandstands.
Yeah.
And then, I think everybody knows about those school bus races.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
those were epic.
Yeah. When we done those, they were just wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty much the time. And the school, we talked about school bus races. You know, Granddaddy wanted everybody else to do it. Well, I was so thankful to have the help that I had.
Mm-hmm.
That was just another way of paying those guys.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like, no, these guys are going to race these buses.
Right.
You know, they've earned the right.
And
I'm
it's so
very
good you
thankful
did
to
that
it.
too, because I think the original idea would have went, it wouldn't have hit like it did.
No. These cats were nuts. You know, they fit right in up there. And one of the biggest regrets that I have is not starting a YouTube channel to document the Thursday nights, Friday nights, and the Saturday behind the scenes.
Yep.
Oh,
Because I
can
promise
imagine.
You'd been a millionaire.
If you would have had tapped into our race control frequencies and just heard some of those conversations,
Yeah, you'd been a millionaire.
oh yeah, it would just, hilarious. Just the different things that we cut up. Now, when it come time to the show, everybody was business, but in between, man, it was just hilarious.
I can only
just
imagine.
the different stuff that took place out there with them. We had there was a guy one night showing his ass on the front stretch. Stopped his car, sitting there revving it up, showing his ass. Mitch complaining. It's okay. We're gonna make a show out of this. So we got the old wrecker, and I told him to take the wrecker way up in turn 4, turn it around and back it up to his car, and be real quiet, extremely quiet. And I sent somebody else down there. I think it was Todd. I told Todd, go down there, just get in his window, talk to him, argue with him a little bit, just keep him distracted.
Right.
Now he was sitting there just showing out. Wasn't going to leave the track. We were trying to get him off, wasn't doing it. I said, just stay at his window, keep him distracted. Taco, y'all get the wrecker back there. Don't let the chains clink on the bumper or anything. Hook him up.
All right.
And when you get him hooked up, jerk the car up all at one time.
Get the rear tires off.
So he's sitting there, and I think it was Todd or Justin. Somebody who was sitting in there with the window, they were just sort of arguing, keeping him distracted.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the rear end of the car comes up. It spins up to about 9,000 RPMs. He can't go anywhere. Crowd went insane. It was just so funny.
That's so cool. You found a way to make a show out of anything you could.
Yeah, it was just the little things like that, man. It was just hilarious to do.
Well, and that's what we need, the showman back. We gotta have the show.
There are so few showmen now. I mean, honestly, I can't think of not one guy that is just a showman when they go out there at the track. Shep Lucas, and he's one of the reasons I brought him in on the school bus race. Yeah. Just he's a showman.
Yeah, we just booked him actually. We
that's
got
great.
him coming on too.
That's great. But just the banter, like with Shep, the banter that we had going back and forth. Me and him, we would get online and just talk trash back and forth. On these bus races. And he dressed up as Ric Flair and everything else, and he could put on a show. And we don't have that.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And we need it.
Oh yeah.
100%. Like probably one of the greatest things that's happened in the last few years, and this is around baseball, is that damn banana ball.
Oh yeah.
Whatever it's called. Savannah Bananas.
Yep.
They're going to change baseball.
Yeah.
Because
they're filling up stadiums too.
They're filling up stadiums. They're putting 81,000 people in stadiums. Yep. And why? They're breaking all the rules.
But they're having a good time. It's a show.
It is a show.
Yep.
And we've got to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
There should be no such thing as a regular Saturday night of racing.
Well, and even I think Scooter said it or whatever. If you look at WWE wrestling, okay, everybody knows wrestling. It is what it is, whatever. But they're going all over this country, and it's a sellout show everywhere they go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nobody cares if it's real, if it's fake, whatever. They want it to be entertainment. They want to be entertained, and they put on a spectacle.
And,
you know what I mean?
And you can do that without affecting the area between the green and the checkered.
Right. That's exactly right.
Just to specify to the listener, though, we're talking about doing this before and after the actual race. The green and the checkered to be pure and unaltered.
Yeah.
But
my granddad at one time, he was going to buy a boxing ring and put it up at the racetrack.
Yeah.
That'd have been the greatest thing.
He was going to do it.
Yeah. Well, they used to do that in downtown Pensacola. They used to have midget wrestling. They used to have it at Wild Greg's and at Roper's, back in the day. I mean, they used to have all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. But he wanted it for the drivers. I was like, they're not going to get it. Yeah, they're not going to do it. But he was bound and determined to do it. And I was supporting it because it would have made a great promotion.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's great promotion.
There was some in the moment that might would have.
And maybe, but at the same time, dude,
I gloves on or be like, all right, now don't kill each other, but get after it.
You know, that would be great.
Yeah.
You know, like and do that. Like I talked, I think, a little bit about maybe the last show. I don't know, some of the different things that I've done to try to get them, you know, just to sort of switch things up on like the bigger races. You know, I take the top 6 instead of doing redraw, I'd freeze T-shirts, just different little things. But man, how cool would it have been to take the guy that was on the pole and the guy that was starting 6th and throwing them out there and say, you're fighting for the pole now. You know, you got one guy that has.
Or you could have done a briefcase match like they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got one guy that's got everything to lose and one that's got everything to gain.
Whoever gets the briefcase gets the pole.
That's it. Yeah, like I said, you put them out there with the big inflatable boppets and just let them go or pool noodles. I don't care what it is. You know, just something funny. But you got to get the guys willing to do it.
Right.
But as far as like, you know, the boxing ring and just getting 2 guys to get out there and fight, man, I tried to incentivize it.
Right.
Every pit meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one.
Oh, yeah. My favorite drivers meet.
If you look, if you fight in the pits, you're going to jail.
Right.
If you fight on the track, the winner gets $100, the loser gets 50.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and nobody would do it.
Right.
You know, they come close a couple of times, but when it come down to the nut cutting, they wouldn't do it.
I don't think anybody thought you were serious.
I was dead serious. It was on I had 2 envelopes stapled inside the building.
No doubt. Did you really?
Yes. Fight winner, $100. Fight loser, 50. It was
awesome.
Stapled in there.
Because I'll be honest with you, the drivers meeting, I always thought it was funny, but I thought you were just doing it to be
I
funny.
was dead damn serious. You know, and we're going to keep it one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that's what my guys were there for.
Yeah.
You know, Big Adam Purvis, you ain't getting out on that track.
Right.
It's going to be hockey rules. It's going to be one-on-one.
Right.
They do
Fight till you're done.
That's it. Fight till you have
I'm glad
enough.
you brought it up because they do it in hockey. Why the heck can we do it in racing?
Exactly. You know, but they just don't want to do it. You know, it's like, man, just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and like
Apparently, the pit exit at Southern's a popular place, but
yeah, I tried a couple of times to get on the guy when I was running late models.
Yeah.
You know, I finally hemmed him up on the front stretch. I missed I tried to spin him over in turn 3 over Flom so I'd have a little bit more time with him. But the car stalled on me. So I ended up hemming him up on the front stretch. By the time I got, you know, I'd done got out of the car, climbed over the car and had him wrapped up. We about to go to work, and then I got hit by 3 guys from the back. You know, it's like, just leave me alone and let me do what I got to do here. You know, he was more than willing.
Right.
You know, but no, we had to break it up. So I said, we ain't doing that.
Right.
Anybody comes out there, you've got all right. And I think I even said it in the pit meeting.
Right.
I said, if you come out there and try to intervene, you're going to get your ass stomped. And you see that guy right there? And I pointed at him and Big Tim. I said, they're going to beat your ass.
Right.
You know? And I was dead serious about it.
Yeah.
Like, trying to incentivize it because it's great. When Jimmy Goodwin had the track, there was Calvin Cook and Daniel Goodell.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember this fight.
I don't remember.
Epic.
That was before my time.
Epic. And I got a funny story behind it too. They were running street stock. It's a big money race. Daniel Goodell was leading. Calvin was running second. There's a little bit of jawing back and forth early in the night in the pits. I think Calvin said he was going to take him out, or anyway, just some jawing.
Yeah.
Calvin goes in there and dumps him. And this when the old guardrail was on the backstretch. I was running third. And he spins him out. Goodell comes through the middle of the track. Through the back, over to the backstretch, hits him in the rear axle, and just shoves the ass into the car halfway through the guardrail. I mean, just TKOs him right there in front of me. And I'm like, shit. I just got the lead.
I win.
This is awesome.
They get out and they go to fighting. I think Calvin's daddy ended up out there on the track, a couple others, and they just go to town. I mean, they are fighting left and right. It's awesome. And they get that all broke up. Meanwhile, Bobby Resmondo is fighting somebody up in the grandstands, completely unrelated. So you got 2 deputies splitting resources. So one goes over here and they're doing that. Well, they put Goodell in handcuffs.
Yeah.
And he's walking off the track, or they're escorting him off the track. Well, they start fighting back out on the track again. So what does the one deputy that was walking Goodell off the track do? He runs back over there. Well, Goodell's handcuffed behind his back or up there at the exit of the track at turn 1. What happens to him? The rest of the Cook gang gets over there and they jumping on his ass with his hands behind his back. So they're literally fighting everywhere.
We went to the fights and the race breaks out.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
I bet you they sold a bunch of tickets the next week.
Oh, yeah, the place was packed for the next 8 races. It was, and Jimmy was in a bad. He was in a bad way with the track. I mean, just sort of it was going down. But this is one of the nights. It used to cloud up, and the Arnolds would call it over at Milton. If it clouded up at 9 o'clock in the morning, they were done.
Right.
So Jimmy would have all the cars, and it was like that a lot. Some races I'd be out there racing against, 8 cars. Next time we're starting 42. He would start every damn one of them.
Oh God!
And this is when you lined up. This was before the turn 2 entrance. So this is when you lined up through the middle road.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
There was no back parking.
Flomaton, he started 42 cars.
Oh yeah. I mean,
how much space between the first place and last place?
You're in lap traffic on lap 2.
Yeah.
You throw the green, and the leaders are hitting lap traffic before the last 2 cars get up to speed.
Right.
He had no problem starting everybody. It was awesome. Because I remember watching when I was a kid, just counting those cars as they come off the track because you really didn't know.
Right.
You just seen all the heat races. They go out there a little bit, and these cars just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, and it's like it was just awesome.
Yeah.
Got to stop the leaders so the car's still in the pits to get on the track.
Yeah, so that saved Jimmy's season. That fight did for the next 8 races. The funny thing about that is I was a senior in high school, and I don't know if you guys did this in Florida, but in Alabama, we had what was called Law Day, right? So all the schools in the county would go to the county seat, would go to the courthouse, and would get briefed on and participate in an actual law case.
Oh, wow.
Well, the attorneys, of course, the DA, somebody from the DA's office, and the defendant attorney would come in go to the different schools, and they would sort of brief the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And explain how everything worked out. Guess what case we
got? Oh, God. You didn't.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We got, because there were like several charges brought up against this, and it was intent to do harm with a motor vehicle. What's the charge?
Right.
And they done jury selection, and was asked, of course, the judge asked, you have any involvement? Well, guess who got asked? This guy.
That's awesome.
It happened right in front of me.
And he's like, do you have any knowledge of this, of these gentlemen, this incident? Of course, I was not, I really wanted to lie because I really wanted to be in that jury.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, yes, sir. And sure do, because they showed the videos of it and everything.
Yeah. I'm in that car.
Yeah, and he said, what knowledge do you have of it? I was like, well, this incident, I was running third. When he took him out, it put me in second, and now that just gave me the lead.
Right.
And he just kind of, the judge just looks at me. He's like, "You fucking serious?" So
awesome.
You're the coolest guy in the courtroom at that point, right
it
there.
ended up being a hung jury, which I thought was kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
I could care less. Either way about whatever it was, but it's like, it was not intent to do harm to him. It was intent to do harm to that rear end.
Right.
And it did.
Right.
If you're not going to win the race,
right.
Or if you didn't let me win the race, you damn sure ain't going to finish it.
Uh-huh.
That was the intent.
Right. Yeah. Nobody got
it. Wasn't. So anyway, I'm a little upset about that, but it was just so funny that how that come back full circle. But see how, but yeah, that whole event, it changed everything for Jimmy's year. One set of fights.
Yeah.
Going on at the same time. It was just awesome.
Uh-huh.
And like I tried my best to incentivize that. Couldn't do it.
Hey, Josh.
Yes, sir.
We've started talking a lot about the start of the 2025 racing season. Do you know what other season to start?
What season is that, Jake?
That's going to be tax season.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and Steph over at Blackwater Bookkeeping can help you get your return filled without even leaving your house.
Oh, that would be nice.
Steph not only does taxes, but she can also help your small business with all your bookkeeping needs. From startups to cleanups, she can get it done. Give her a call or text today, 850-290-3043.
I honestly believe that not a whole bunch of people thought you were serious, because I didn't.
I'm dead damn serious. And I would tell everybody every single night. I'd tell them that every single night. Winner gets $100, loser gets $50.
Well, and if there's cops here and like there's liability reasons, and that's things that was running through my head. Why you thought I thought you were joking.
I paid them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't work for the department that night. They were
that was a side job.
They were getting paid for the racetrack.
Yeah,
they get told to do is what they're told to do. And yeah, I mean they could handle it all the legal way. If you go to fighting in the pits and get them out of here, then they would charge them with something. But if we told them, hey, leave them alone, off you go.
You might want to have added that part. That might have helped.
I mean, maybe, but
I mean, officer discretion is a wonderful, beautiful thing.
Absolutely. But I just, I'm trying to give you $100, or 50 if you suck.
He said 50 if you suck. Then it sucks to suck.
Yeah, but it's still something. But yeah, I was dead serious. I think the way I started every pit meeting was like, if you're not here to have a good time, you can go start a pistol.
Yeah.
Don't be here.
All right.
We are all here to have a good time and put on a show. And I point to the stands every single night. That is the reason that we're here. Put on a show. The school bus races that we did, they were not races. It was evident. It was not, don't get stretched out.
Yeah, it's all in entertainment.
It is 100% in entertainment. Yeah. Like I said, I've got a few regrets of things that I wanted to do that I didn't do. I'd love to start a YouTube channel. I think we'd still be rolling the racetrack and I'd be driving a pretty nice truck and all the things, But I wanted to do that. There was a few other little different events that I wanted to do. Some things that I thought was really cool when I was younger. Do you remember the Dynamite Lady? She used to come out to the racetrack. She would do it at Flomaton. I think she would do it at Five Flags. Basically, they'd put, cherry bombs on the corner of this thing and have them detonated all at one time. But it was like this wooden box that she would climb into, and it was extremely loud. But she would just basically blow herself up. Basically, they're just putting it on the corner of the boxes, and the whole thing just sort of blows up. And I think it's like sheetrock or whatever. But it was just, when it was over with, she was laying on the ground, get up and limp around a little bit and be fine. You also had the guy that used to set himself on fire.
I do remember that. I never got to see that, but I've heard of that.
Wrapped himself up in asbestos wrap,
wow.
which is not particularly healthy.
Yeah.
Put like this goop in his hair, head sock on.
These folks are no longer with us, by the way.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
But, like they would do that, and like it was fire retardant for X amount of time. So anyways, it just, run around on fire and they put him out. But it was so cool to see it. It's like, man, I wish we could have found that. That's one thing that I wouldn't have done. But, it's like those little things, man, were really cool. I think we talked about, I don't know if we brought it up last week, but one of the things I would have loved to have done that I think would have went very well was to build a little track in the infield with like a couple of little small jumps. And the rules are you have to have a whip antenna and a dog box.
Oh yeah.
I thought that would have been great.
I know a lot of people that would do it.
Yeah.
In fact, the truck I would use, it ends out there. It just don't have a dog box in it right now.
But that would sort of be the deal. And we brought the Bigfoot in. We brought the monster truck in a few times, and that was great. Huge crowds for that. I thought that was great. But what I would have loved to have done was to have one of the big tractors that do the tractor pull, with the 5 big blocks on it or something like that. And just come in, just do a pull. Just do one pull. I think that would have been awesome and would have been something that would have sold and done really well. But yeah, just a little something every night that makes it worth it. And just promote.
Well, and it gives somebody to look forward to the next weekend to talk about.
Yeah.
Word of mouth advertising is the best advertising.
That is the best.
You know what I mean?
The best. Word of mouth is number 1. Guerrilla marketing is number 2.
Yep.
You cannot beat just flyers, signs, putting it out places, just doing stuff like that. That's one of the things.
Well, when you can get that fan to go tell their friends, man, you should have seen what I seen at the racetrack. That's the best thing.
But see, when that happens, the next week has to be a show too.
Yeah.
Because when you get that person in the seat, they be like, really? This is what you were
This is the normal?
You'll lose them.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. No.
So and I've made this point before, and not on this podcast, but I believe that a dirt track in this area gets one opportunity a year to get all the cars. And I've seen it. for 22 years I have seen it. You get one shot. And sometimes it's Deep South, sometimes it was Flomaton, sometimes it's Southern, sometimes it's Tri-County, whatever, or Baker. But at least once a year, you are the racetrack, and you're going to get all the cars.
And everything better be
And
perfect.
it better be right, and you can't shit the bed. The racetrack better be smooth. It better be a show, and we better get out of there on time. That is your requirements, because if you shit the bed in any of those 4 things, you're done for the season.
Mm-hmm.
You lose your car count, and you have to struggle all year long to try to get the cars back.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could get the promoters to understand that and understand, hey, this is my night. This is my night right here. We're living it. We're in it. Let's do a good job.
We
You know
done
what I mean?
something. It was really unprecedented at the time because none of the tracks worked together. Nobody worked together. We talked about the bidding war that we were in, but none of the tracks worked together because there was no communication.
All right.
And I was able to get them together for a couple of different things. One, we was able to revive the crate racing, the late model racing, by starting the Southeastern Crate Series.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically just an agreement between the tracks to don't run the late models on top of one another. You got a small portion over here. We can't split it 3 ways. You run them, I run them, you run them.
Mhm.
You know, that was it. And we done it at Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah.
You know, and was able to get an agreement together and worked out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you another story about that one. But we were able to do something else that was pretty cool. Then you like what you talked about. Tonight is your night.
Mm-hmm.
We done what was called the 6-shooter series.
Yeah.
I would love to know the story of how that come about.
It was basically just that, you know,
Recognizing, hey, we're going, yeah.
You know, everybody benefits from these rainout nights. Why don't we just create one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, just create
Basically
this
what you
night
did,
on the schedule to where every track gets a shot in the arm. Because, I mean, united we stand or divided we will fall.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what has got, you know, unfortunately, that sort of went away. The whole 6-shooter thing went away when we closed the track down. But there for a year or so, there was a little bit of riffraff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and tracks wasn't really getting along that well, wasn't communicating. And man, it's just like, since then, they've sort of gotten a little better at it. Of course, you had a wild card thrown into the mix too.
Right.
But yeah, the 6-shooter race, it was something I conjured up and met with these guys on, and this is it. 2 races at your track, 2 races at your track, 2 races at my track. And when we have those races, I want you to be there. I'll be at your track. You be at my track. You use your platforms to promote my event.
Mm-hmm.
When it's your turn, we all promote your event. We all be there, show a united front, and just try to make it, just, you know, promote it the way that you would want it to be promoted for you.
Absolutely.
So that on that night, you get all the cars.
And that's the only way it works.
That's it. And it was just a guaranteed way.
It was great.
And every track got a shot in the arm. I would rather make more money on one night than I would on 3 nights.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Give me that one night. And it gives the other tracks a break. You know, and there was a couple times like, you know, just the track owners just needed a weekend.
Mhm.
You know, go take your wife out, show up later. Just show your face at the track, but go enjoy yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, enjoy a break.
I remember the first one at Southern. I remember walking out of my enclosed and looking up, and from tech shed all the way to the ticket gate for the pits.
Yep.
They were lined up for pre-tech, pure stocks and street
Yep.
stocks. And I was just like, holy crap. I think there was 40-something pure stocks first night.
We qualified them. We made them feel special.
That was cool.
We made everybody feel like super late model drivers.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 tech men were there.
That was cool too.
You know, so, you know, Big Tim, he went to all the different tracks. I think Buddy Miller, he come around. Frayne, everybody was there. It was a 100% united front. And
it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked.
Extremely
It worked.
well.
And we just took, and collectively, we split it up 3 ways, and we paid an extra night's purse for the points fund. You know, and ended up getting a lot of contingency prizes along the way. Had some really cool trophies. I think a lot of guys still have them. The card, little trophy that we made, and it was great. It started over a conversation at the Texas Roadhouse. Just drew it out. Took a little bit for these guys to understand that they needed to take a night off. And it's like, take 2 nights off. You're going to make more money. Well, it ended up being 4 nights for them, but you're going to make more money on those 2 nights than you will on the 3 nights combined.
Right.
And they did. Man, it was great. You got all the people. You got all the cars for 2 nights.
And you got a show.
And you got a damn good show.
I mean, you got the best of the best in the area there.
Yep. And so, I had the best tech, man. I did.
No arguments at this table on that.
I didn't always have didn't have the best facility. We had the best tech, man. When we run the show, pretty much let everybody sort of keep their own staff, but we did oversee it. So you had consistency the way the show was ran.
Right.
And that part was great. We'd done it for 2 years, and it was very successful. Very successful. And I wish it could be done again, but you got problems now.
Right.
The car count's not what it was.
Car count's not what it was. The car count is divided.
And you've actually divided that classes up now because now you have factory stock.
Yeah, you took the best class.
Divided it
4 ways. You got a pure hobby factory bomber. Nothing's pure factory hobby or bomber about them.
Right. Well, and it goes back to what we said before. If you can't take the average fan and put them in the stands, and if they can't tell the difference between the classes of cars,
you got a problem.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, it's like it wasn't long ago. There were 3 classes of late models up in Tri-County. You can't tell a damn nickels worth of difference between the 3 of them. What's the difference between a factory stock and pure stock? I can't tell you really. As far as the lap times,
there's a straight stock and a pure stock got together and had a baby, and
I see some 2-story ones floating around out there. That's neither here nor there, but just like man, it's just it just seems like it's such a mess right now. Street stocks are $40,000. That was stupid.
Well, and here's the thing that I don't understand it. Now I understand that a lot of them using Johnson clips now and stuff like that, but you're paying $40,000 for a car that cost $3,800, brand new, had air conditioner and a radio in it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
that to me I can't make that math make sense.
Well,
that
I don't
class
remember
got out of hand.
I don't remember what year, and here's my problem with the factory stocks. Okay, I don't remember what year it was that we actually went away from the 10-inch tires and went to at the time, I guess, the Neesmith street stocks. But that was the first time ever. And the only rule change was you went from 10-inch wheels and tires to 8-inch wheels and tires. So it wasn't that bad. And we've done it over a little bit of a time. It wasn't terrible. We sold tires at cost. We sold wheels at cost for a little bit just to help guys get converted over. But for the first time ever, we were able to be on the same page as Loxley and all the Mississippi tracks.
Is that why that happened?
Yeah.
Was just to get on the page on the other? I
wanted to be on the same page as the Mississippi tracks.
I got
you. Because we were so isolated, we had our own thing.
I missed the old 10-inch tire classes.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
And they would damn sure prep.
They would hook up in the black, but if you got in a fluff, you was in trouble.
Right.
But yeah, that's the reason why we done it, was to get to finally be on one united set of rules across the board. And for the 2 years, it was great. Man, we brought the Mississippi street stock class over here, and they didn't want to come, but we sort of made that deal up in the negotiations. Like, hey, I'm going to do this, and once I do it, I'm going to force the hand of another track down the road.
Right,
he's going to have to go to it. And then the third track is going to have to go to it. And these, I think it was Greenville, but I don't remember which ding-dongs were running that track at the time. But I said, you're essentially going to get 4 tracks by me. So here's what I want.
Right.
And I was able to negotiate and get those guys in through the back door.
And they actually put on a pretty good show.
Oh, hell of a show.
Yeah.
Hell of a show. That was I think the second time they came is the night that it rained 7 inches.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was so funny because it rained 4 inches that morning, 3 inches that afternoon. I'm watching the radar. Guys just parked all in the pits. I said, you can tell them come on in. I'm watching the radar. And it's kind of what I do. I'm a pilot. I understand this stuff. When I'm watching this, going to be done at 6:15.
And it was too. Me and Crenshaw sat there in the truck waiting, and I was like, man, we ain't never going to get the race tonight.
But, the Mississippi Street Stock guys, they were down there at the tech shed having their pit meeting. And Justin and Adam come in the back door and said, we need water on the track. I said, you got to be shitting me. And they said, no, because the sun come out. And they said, no, look at it. I look out there and that dude is dry. I said, shit, fired up. Because I'm in there registering and all that. Jeff Clark, he wasn't with us at the time. I think he took a job in Pennsylvania. So I was doing race directing, race control, scoring, the whole nine. I was doing all of it. So do it. And to hear Adam and Justin talk about the looks that they got when they took that water truck by those guys, thinking, what the hell are these idiots doing? I think Justin said, you thought I had a horn growing out of my head the way they were looking at me, But yeah, it turned out to be a great show. But
with Mother Nature doing all these crazy things here lately, especially the winter storms, you may have noticed your curtains blowing in the breeze every time the wind blows. If that is the case, give Window World of Pensacola a call. They specialize in non-impact and impact-rated windows for all residential needs. They are located at 10108 North Palafox Street in Pensacola, or you can give them a call at 850-484-9998. We'll be happy to help you with all of your window needs.
that was the reason for it. Now, what caused it to go awry? Got a handful of guys over there. There was either building chassis, had the money, something that made the rule changes and just got things stupid. When it first went to it, everybody was on the same uppers.
Yep.
Everybody was on the same lowers. You couldn't do any changes. Shocks were simple.
Got way too
and
complicated.
then it just got way out of hand.
It turned into a poor man's lake model.
Who's
I wouldn't
pulling
even
the
call it a
strings?
poor man.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Where are the rules coming from for the factory stocks?
It's a late model without the coilover.
Yeah, pretty much. But where are the rules coming for the factory stocks?
Same folks.
What do you think's going to happen? Have we not learned anything?
No, we haven't.
So that factory stock is, I'm going to say, 2 rule changes away from growing obsolete.
Yep.
And it's a slow growth now. But it's 2 rule changes away from being obsolete. But you took your best class and you split it like that. Factory stock, you started a bomber class. It only takes 2 years for a bomber class to get out of hand if they're not properly tech. And it's hard to tech them.
Ground stocks are already starting.
They're starting to fade off. They're get out of hand. And then it won't be long, they'll fade off. Your supply is going to dry up eventually. So that's not the future. So you got to do something. And a lot of people, I have an unpopular opinion, but I think is the only way to fix it. And it is to go IMCA racing. Go
That
IMCA.
is an unpopular opinion, and I actually agree with you.
You need to go. You got your street stock class that's going to ride. You got 4 stock car classes that's just out there. You need a intermediate, a beginner class, which is going to be your hobby stocks, which is I think 7.5-inch wheels. You can look up the rules. I can't quote the rules exactly, but it's stock type bodies, which you can still sort of fabricate and get them aftermarket, whatever. It's not, but a little bit more of a rule package on that. But I think you're on DOT tires and 7.5-inch wheels, if I'm not mistaken. That is your new pure stock class. And then you got your street stock class that is the IMCA stock cars.
Yeah, the I stock.
And those sons of bitches can race. And guess what? You're on the same uppers.
Yep.
You're on the same lowers. You have a little bit of freedom with your with the engine. Doesn't get out of hand because they sort of cap you off at the 500 CFM, which is great, which is needed. Everybody's on the same rear end. You're on the same trailing arms. The uppers have to be in the same location or stock location. The lowers is where you can drop them down and make them tote the tire and do all the wild fun stuff. You got some freedom on your shocks within reason. And those guys race. And then you can take that car anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
And race.
Yeah.
And then once a year, with the show that they putting on, the Clash on the Coast, once a year, all the tracks around here are going to get a shot in the arm as far as car counts.
You're going to the biggest show in IMCA here.
Well, I think that I think everybody sees the writing on the wall that is the way to save racing around here. However, I think that
everybody hates change.
Well, everybody hates change, but the issue that the racetracks have And this is not a dig at y'all or dig at any racetrack, but it's just the truth. The racetracks don't have any integrity in their rules. And the reason that I say that is, and I think I may have hit on this before, is that, racetracks need sponsors. They need help, stuff like this. Who helps the racetrack? Racers do. You know what I mean? So it gets out of hand very quickly in a class when, hey, I'm gonna sponsor this class, or I'm gonna do this, or hey, y'all need new bathrooms, I'm gonna go buy all new toilets or whatever. By the way, I need to roll a camshaft. You know what I mean? Or I need this, or I need that. And it just, the racetrack's, all right, yeah, we'll do that for you, whatever. We really appreciate the help. But it gets out of hand. You know what I mean? And then when you get the wrong people that are over these sanctioning bodies that have unlimited money, they don't think about the little guy. They don't think about the guy that's working 9 to 5 just to race, or, you know what I mean? They don't think about that. So they throw whatever rule changes they want to. One thing that's different about IMCA is there ain't nobody got enough money to go to IMCA and be like, hey, I need this. It's been the same since their inception. You know what I mean? And their rules don't change, and everybody knows their rules don't change. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
the product speaks for itself.
Yeah.
And I know some guys that they don't want to pay I think it would be like $75 for the membership. I think modifieds are like $120.
Yeah,
but if you look at the points fund and all the things they do for their drivers.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
you get a life insurance policy with that.
I would pay $200 to know, for me to go race at a track all year long. I would pay $200 to know that if I've got a problem and I don't think the tech is being done right, I can make a phone call.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
you have an avenue.
Yeah. Or I do the protest and I know it's going to be handled properly.
Yeah.
You have an appeal.
Process. The whole reason I wanted to circle back to this, the whole reason that the Southeastern Crate Series sort of fizzled out, went away, is because the second year it was Neesmith sanctioned.
Mm-hmm.
And Neesmith didn't do a whole lot to benefit us.
Right.
As far as the track, like we didn't get any incentive, anything
I've heard
else.
that a lot from a lot of owners.
And you don't expect that from a sanctioned body. You don't want anything, you'd love for him to do some promotion for you.
Yeah.
But really there was nothing there. But the second year there was, one of the guys that was sort of helping be on the forefront of it, wanted to change it up, go away from Neesmith, go to American Racer Tires, all this and that. And I'm sure there was some personal reasons for that.
Yeah.
But I said, no, we can't. We're not going that way. Who's going to be the tech man? And they named off who the tech man was going to be. Now, he won't cheat one up. Bullshit. I've got 2 of them.
Right.
He's like, don't tell me that.
Right.
I love the guy.
Right.
But I've got 2 of his motors.
Right.
That been cheated out.
Shit.
So you can't tell me that.
You can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Well, we get in exactly. So we get into, we decide we're going to stick with Neesmith and run this show. Well, the second race into the year, you had Mark Clifton driving for Tracy Sutton, and Tracy Sutton also had a car, sort of team cars there.
Mm-hmm.
And they come to the track. Mark won. Joiners finished second. Tracy finished third. Well, the Joiners protested first place.
Mm-hmm.
They protested Clifton's motor. Well, who's sitting third? The guy what owns the car that just won.
Right.
So he protests that motor just out of retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here we are. We got a double protest on our hands. And at the time, Big Tim Sims was the tech man for Neesmith.
Mm-hmm.
That man's got integrity.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to question that. So it's like, okay, we got a mess on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So what we done is we pulled both engines. I took evidence tape, sealed these things up, over the head bolts, everything else. I took this, very fragile. You familiar with the evidence tape?
Oh yeah.
If you you can't manipulate it.
Right. You peel it off, it peels the red off, and then you can tell that it's been
peeled
tampered
off.
with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we run tape all around this thing, run this evidence tape around it. So if you could tell it would be tampered with, I had both drivers, Clifton and Joyner, sign their name on it, on each engine, so that you would know they had been tampered with. Put them in the back of my granddaddy's truck, drove him to his house, locked it up in the in the shop.
I remember this.
And called Big Tim Sims that night. He was in the driveway at 9:00 Sunday morning. And he tore these engines from the hilter to the kilter, asshole to appetite. I ain't never seen an engine tore down as much as these engines tore down.
Right.
It was the most thorough process that you'd ever seen. Both of them ended up being legal. They took them back in wash tubs, and it was good to go. How would that have been handled had we let the series go in the other direction?
It wouldn't have.
It would not have went well. There would have been no support behind it and no backbone behind it, and the series would have died
instantly
that night.
Yeah.
Instead, it took a couple of years, but
having a tech that's like a third party from out of town too.
Exactly.
He's no bias.
He don't have it. Yeah, he don't have a dog in the fight.
None.
Right.
That is what a real sanctioning body gives you, and that's what IMCA gives you with the rules.
Right.
You know, if it's not going your way,
have an avenue.
There is a higher authority that is over this.
The track's rules, not the dictator.
The rules don't change.
Right.
And IMCA works around here. We've seen it happen. You remember when Bill Webb had Deep South Speedway?
Yeah.
That was an all IMCA track.
Yeah. That was my rookie season in 2007.
He had stock cars, hobby stocks. He had everything but sprint cars. And it was all IMCA. And he had
a
ton of cars.
Yeah, a whole field of cars.
Ton of cars. Same thing happened to him that happened to us. He run the World of Outlaws show. Track owners come around, went to raise the lease on him because there's tons and tons of people here. You know, and that was an awesome show, by the way. But same thing happened to them. But yeah, so that's what IMCA or a higher authority sanctioned body brings to the table as far as the rules. They do not change their rules. They are the higher authority. They bring structure. They actually put a good product on the track. You know, it's not, kind of heat races really don't matter. And whenever you line up the feature races, it's more so by points. So it puts a good product on the track. When I raced, if you won the week before, you started the rear. I thought it was awesome.
And they're the way they start.
But it also teaches these newer drivers how to pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're only going to run dead last so long before I got to figure out how to pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they put low points man to the front.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, not only did, when I first started, it was high points man. And that's the way it was my granddad, when they raced all the way through. The high points man always started the rear. And it created a better points race, But the high points man started the rear. And if you won the feature the night before, you started the rear. That following week. And it made for a really good product to watch these guys. I mean, in 2007, it was either me winning or Bobby Resmondo winning. One of us was starting on the pole and the other one was coming. And it was just a matter of time before we got there.
Yeah.
And people loved it. And we had a really good rivalry. I mean, good friends.
It's also something you can talk about, promote too.
Exactly. But yeah, racing is in such disarray with all these classes right now. And it's always sort of been, if you asked me 10 years ago, there'd been a problem. There's doom and gloom, but man, we got to get these rule packages squared away.
I agree.
And I got two things to say about the IMCA. First of all, I know a lot of people hate the fact that you got to buy like IMCA stamp stuff and the stickers. Okay. To have that sanctioning body to do everything you just explained, they got to bring in an income.
Yeah.
You're not paying for their yacht. They have a business and they got to run it. Second thing is everybody says it. Not everybody. A lot of people say it won't work. It won't work. Well, when IMCA modifieds come back, everybody said it won't work. It won't work.
Yep.
People threw a fit, didn't like it. It's our biggest class.
Yeah,
we knew it would work.
And Josh was instrumental in it, but Flomaton Speedway is what bought the IMCA modifieds back.
Yeah. We knew it would work.
And it come about, we say they never changed the rules. They did change the rules at some point. They finally went to the quick change rear ends.
Yep.
For a long time, they were still floaters.
But they were methodical with that. They didn't just throw that rule in there. It took them a while.
Well in advance. They thought it out. They worked it out. But when they finally went to that, I said, okay, we can finally do it because we can grow this thing track to track to track. And all these guys got to do is, whatever, 6 bolts, change them out.
The tracks are so different. I could see where that would be a challenge not having a quick change.
So I was at PRI, Performance Racing Industry Trade Show in Indianapolis whenever they made that rule change, the year before, and I got talking to them about it. So we can do this. I made a couple of phone calls. I called Tim Wood, called Greg Hopkins. Got back. I think I ended up talking to him at some point, and we ended up putting this thing together. And I always dreamed of a show like what they're doing with the Clash on the Coast, sort of a Speed Weeks type show. Just never could get full support behind the IMCA. There was always a sort of lingering open modified deal that we just couldn't squash it. And I felt like we needed to squash it before we could finally go completely IMCA with it.
With the Clash, Peyton just had the time and he had the connections with IMCA.
Yeah. And it worked out. But even before then, even the year before that, I mean, Scott over at Northwest Florida Speedway was having 17, 18 cars. So it was already healthy. And all this is doing is just giving it a shot in the arm, and it brought a huge influx in. And it is the best class. So yeah, it can work. Now you've got a little bit of a problem in it because it's starting to become really, really competitive. So you got
really competitive.
You got to relieve that pressure a little bit. You got to give these guys a place to go, so that you've got your dogs, right? Your top 10.
I know where you're going with this because this was I got an IMCA car and the class was tough, but it wasn't impossible. And I got a 14 model chassis, and now I'm like, I ain't never gonna win a race.
Oh no, I mean that's flawed thinking. You can still do it.
I know,
but the class has just gotten really, really competitive. So we've got to make sure that we're enforcing the rules to the T. To keep that, you got to relieve that pressure that way. But also, for guys like myself, I just don't have the time to race and the time to be competitive, but I want to. So I would be better suited and would love the opportunity to get back into a stock top car, something that I know I speak the language in. The technology is not going to change on me. I would love to have that to where I didn't have to be, running every single weekend to have everything sort of dialed in just right, because the seasons change. Right. I might not get to race for 2 months. Oh, yeah. Well, we're in a completely different climatological season. So the tracks are completely different. So what I had that may have been working, I'm starting from scratch. So I'm trying to catch up to these guys. Yeah. So you've got to race to be competitive. Well, in the stock cars, not quite as much. I would love the opportunity for that. So I could sell my modified, keep it local, and do that. So it relieves a little bit of pressure on me, and I can go and I can compete because I was good in that, and I can be good again. At least I think I can. There's a lot more gray hair. But, so you got to have a little bit for these people to go to, and have the different levels of classes along the way. So you got the modifieds are going to replace the late models around here.
Oh, yeah. 100% they are.
They've only got one track to race at, and it's only a matter of time before it just completely dollars itself out.
This will be the new modified country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that's where you're going to have your upper echelon. Then you need a second tier and a third tier and a fourth tier. Even down to the Stinger class. And I saw this idea the other day, and I thought it was awesome. I don't know what track it was or what they're even calling it, but they were running the Bang Bangers, because that's what I'm going to call them from now on. But they were running the Bang Bangers, but they were running them in like a bracket style. So if you turned a lap time under a certain time, you got black flag and you had to go to the back.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a bracket style. So if you turned anything less than like a 16.2 around this track or whatever, you had to go to the back.
Oh, wow.
So you always wanted to run as close as you could.
But not go over.
But not go under.
Under. Yeah.
And man, I thought it was just awesome.
Not break out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what they call it, the breakout race.
Yep.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Because nobody can tech those damn cars.
Yeah.
Tim called a bunch of them doing different things, but man, there's so much stuff, and I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
I can't tech them.
Yeah.
Tim,
I don't want to tech them.
He done a good job, but those guys that are doing it, career bang banger drivers, man, they really know how to tune on those things. So you can't police them from the tech shed.
You said the right word, tune.
Yeah. Let's police them with a stopwatch.
Yeah.
And everybody's got transponders. I thought that would be awesome.
That's a really good idea, really.
Yeah. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
To maybe do something like that. So, hey, you build whatever you want, brother. You go under a 16.2, though, your ass is going to the back.
Yeah.
I thought that would be awesome to
That
try.
is cool. Yeah. You'd probably have to have an extra score.
Nobody can bitch about it because you got a transponder on. You know what I mean? It ain't like somebody with a
That's
stopwatch.
right. And you can program these, the code on these transponders, these, race monitor, whatever it is. You can program to where it flash red right away. So right away. Yeah. Hey, 27.
Yep.
Fall back. And show them the black flag and make a show out of it.
Yeah. Be a showman again.
Yeah. I thought that would be awesome.
Yeah. I hope the people that are running these racetracks right now are listening to this podcast, because that is a really good idea, actually.
Like I said, I just saw it the
that
other
would
day.
give,
It's not
that
my
would
idea.
give the fans a reason to stay and watch the Bang Bangers.
Yeah.
Because nobody stays to watch them, and bless their hearts. I mean, they're out there racing.
They are just as much as a racer as anybody else.
And
Absolutely, they are.
Like I said before, when I was at Southern, they put on the best show.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
and
more
they
of
deserve
them
to have people in the stands watching them. But that right there would keep people in the stands, man. I want to see. That would be cool. That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah. Now, you got to determine what that time is, and you can't make it to the fast cars. You got to make it to the guy running ninth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And I think it would be awesome.
Yes.
To do.
Yeah.
So you could
that would probably rebuild that class. Actually.
I think it would.
Yeah.
I think it would.
That would rebuild that class.
Will the guys be accepted to it? Just like any other class. You got the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, but if that's the new normal, that's the normal.
It is what it is.
Everybody's on the same playing field.
And another thing that cuts out, because a lot of the Stinger cars, kind of like the old bomber class, depending on what car you buy, depends on how fast you are. If you go buy our Acura RSX with the K20 Honda motor, I believe it is. I'm not a big tuner expert, so don't kill me. That car is dominant. It's got more, the Nissan Sentra Spec V. It's got 2.4 liter. That thing was dominant. All right. So, depending on what car you could find and afford, depending on how fast you're going to be, well, that cuts that out. If you put that laptop on it don't matter what car you got. If you break over it, back
you
you
could
go.
get the old hatchback Honda Civic and be good.
Go back to winning races.
Yeah. I think it's awesome.
With the economy back on the rise and interest rates coming down, if you're looking for a new home in the Panhandle area, give Levada Burrows McIntyre a call with Century 21 BE3. She's been serving the Panhandle, helping buyers and sellers achieve all of their real estate needs. Give her a call at 850-554-2180 or find her on her website at levadasales.com.
But yeah, you got to look out. These tracks have got to look out for the have-nots.
Yeah.
We need the 15th through 30th place cars.
You got
to. We need 15th.
You cater to them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because here, the cream will always rise. It don't matter what the rules are, whatever.
They'll find a way.
Yeah, you'll find a way to win. And the true racer loves that. Loves the challenge of trying to find a way to win.
That's the rush.
Right. So, well, Micah, this has been an awesome deal.
I think we got one more guest we need to bring on.
Yeah.
Hey, Owen,
you over here? Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Short Track Shakedown. Sorry you had to wait so long. We were having a good conversation with your daddy. But tell me about this slingshot car that you got, and tell me what your plans for this year is.
To win a race.
You're going to try to win a race. All right. Where are you going to race at?
Baker.
You're going to run at Scott's track up there? That's a good racetrack. Do you like running up there? How do you deal with the How do you are you liking the speed of it and how fast they go?
Mm-hmm.
Are you? What's your favorite thing about racing?
Passing other cars.
That's good.
That's really good. So do you like trying to figure out how to pass them and how to set up the pass?
Yes.
Okay.
You ever had any wreck?
Yes.
Well, tell me about your wreck. What kind of wreck did you have?
A car tried to spin me out and it flipped.
Oh, you flipped? Oh, no. Were you okay?
Yes.
Well, that's good.
Well, good thing you went ahead and got that out of the way.
Yeah, you can be part of that club.
Did you have fun when you flipped, or was it scary?
Scared.
Yeah.
Did you get right back on the horse?
The race after I did.
Didn't you?
That's good.
Well, that is good. Well, I hope that you win you a race this year, youngin. I hope you can get you 2 or 3 of them. Actually, when is your next race?
Next Saturday.
Well, y'all, if y'all are listening to this podcast, y'all go out and support these youngins. This is what we need in racing. Y'all go to Scott's track at Northwest Florida Speedway and support these kids. And these are the future racers.
Absolutely.
This is the future of motorsports right here. So we thank you for being here, buddy. And thank you for being on the show and being so patient while we were having a conversation with your dad. And I really appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, y'all go see Owen, the next generation of
That's exactly
McCalls
right.
to hit the dirt tracks.
That's exactly right. Who's your hero?
My papa.
Your papa?
Uh-huh.
I like that.
That's a good hero
That's a good,
right there.
That's a good hero to have, baby. That's a good hero to have. Well, we do certainly appreciate it. Appreciate you being so patient tonight, being with us. I know we went long on this deal, but you've been golden tonight. You've been perfect. We really appreciate that, babe. So, I do have one last question for you. What is obviously he is the future of the McCall racing family and everything, but what do you have planned for the rest of the year?
You know, I got to put a clip on my car. I've got a Beak built chassis. I got to run it back up to David Ruderman's shop and sort of tweak the horn on it a little bit. Last time I run it over at at Milton, I was fortunate enough, Newt Lambeth, sort of cousin of mine, he's got a car and he's sort of developing as a driver, and he let me drive his car for the Clash and just sort of trying to shake it down. The goal was just to make the car better for him. And we done that. Had a really good time and got it better. So as far as my car, I've got a lot of training I've got to go through with the new airline job. So I may be out for a little bit, but when I do get the opportunity, I'm going to, be helping Owen and just trying to help develop Newt as a driver and get him going. But eventually get enough time to get my car up to North Carolina to let Ruderman put a new clip on it. And so I'll be probably trying to race a little more next year.
Okay.
But just trying to, trying to coach up a little man here and trying to help out Newt as much as I can with him. And he's going to be tough in the next few years.
That's awesome.
That's pretty much my plans.
That's awesome. Well, we do certainly appreciate you coming back and doing your own episode and everything. You've been a key player in racing around here for a lot of years, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate you coming and doing this on a Friday night, and spending your evening with us and letting us get this in on Easter weekend.
Absolutely, man. Like I said, I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. I hope this is worth. Hope my little gabbing here is worth the listener listening to, and
absolutely.
Hope I bring more to the show. But what you guys are doing is just fantastic. I love it.
We definitely we're enjoying it. I know I am. I'm speaking for Jake a little bit, but I know that he's enjoying it, and I think that as we get farther off into this, I think it's going to change people's opinion of racing. You know what I mean? And we got to get excited about it again.
Well, we got to leave it better than we found it.
Right.
We got to develop it for the years
for the
coming
next
up.
Generation.
If not, these racetracks are going to be
ghost towns.
Yeah.
It goes back to what you said. When you're talking about the same things are happening now that happened before. So even if we can just get a little history out there, of what happened before, so people hopefully will open their eyes, and we don't repeat the same mistakes.
That's exactly right.
Learn from it. Like I said, get these. Hold the tracks accountable, but support them.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't bitch about it and not be there.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly.
But also you got to support the people that are supporting motorsports.
That's fact.
We've got a lot of sponsors, and we're so thankful for our sponsors on this podcast. But for you listeners, we don't do these advertisements and everything for just to hear ourselves talk. Support these businesses that are supporting racing, and it doesn't matter if it's just this podcast or other. Just support anybody that's willing to support motorsports. Support them. And I think that if we can grow that, then we can change the way racing is around here right now.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and it's so. motorsports fans are so brand loyal.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's Ford, Chevy, Home Depot, Lowe's.
I'll be honest with you. I was a Tony Stewart fan and not a Jimmy Johnson fan. For years, I would not shop at Lowe's just because of that. You know what I mean?
You are a business owner, you jump into motorsports in some way, shape, or form, you will get an instant customer base because of brand loyalty to motorsports.
Absolutely.
It works. I promise. I've seen it in so many different venues, from, you know, running a racetrack, running a race car, running a business. You know, even when I had Murder Creek, I tried my best to support racing as much as we could with it, because it creates, and that company would not have been what it was if it was not for my ties to motorsports.
Yeah, and the racing community.
And racing. So it will pay off. Guys, advertise on this show, advertise with your racetrack, do anything you can, and nothing is too small.
Yep.
So anything
100%.
that you can do to support motorsports is fantastic. Get the next generation involved in it. If we don't, it's going to die. Tracks are going to be like we talked about. Me and you were having a conversation the other day. It's either going to be cemeteries or, you know, subdivisions, parking lots, something. We've got to keep racing alive, and the way we do it is support it now and support it later.
Yep.
Wake up and realize how blessed we are with the amount of tracks and racing we have here, because you don't have it anywhere else.
Yeah. That is a true fact.
Yeah. Leave more than you take anywhere. Help everybody you can. You know, if you're a competitor, help the guy next to you.
Yep.
Any little thing is appreciated.
And if you don't like something, keep it off of social media.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, and that's the biggest thing. You know, these racetrack owners and these promoters, it means more to them when you pick up the phone and call them direct.
Call them.
Talk to the horse. You know what I mean?
Right.
Don't get on social.
There's no reason to make a spectacle.
Right. Don't get on social media and bash a racetrack or whatever, because all that's doing is killing the sport we love.
We had a local track owner last night was online trying to debunk rumors. That's the worst thing we could do, man. Worst thing we could do. So let's just support tracks, support each other, support the businesses that support us, and we'll leave it in a better place. But thank you guys for having us on. I think it's great.
I want to speak one more thing to that, and I posted it somewhere on Facebook, but it's a saying. It says, competition is at the bottom. The people at the top are collaborating.
That's right.
And I just want to put that out there.
That's perfect saying.
Well, guys, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. Jake, you got anything else?
Yeah, special thanks to 5-Star Medicare, Blackwater Bookkeeping, Moresite Solutions, Century 21, and Window World.
Absolutely. We certainly appreciate all of our sponsors for helping us out. Well, guys, that is episode number 14 in the books.
This has been a production of the Short Track Media Group, LLC. Any unauthorized recording, reproduction, or distribution without express written consent from the Short Track Media Group, LLC is strictly prohibited and will result in legal action.